Welcome to the Sip and Chat. I am Marlene of Love Marlene 411, where we have very important conversations about life, relationships, and healing from our past so that we can live an amazing present and future. So, welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the Sip and Chat. Hello, puzzle pieces. How are you doing? Welcome in. Um, if you guys could hit the like, I'd really appreciate it. Welcome to the Sip and Chat, everybody. And you know what I gotta ask you? What y'all sipping on? What are you sipping today? You already know your girl is having her tea. It's a hot tea. It's not peppermint tea like I like, not my favorite. Just having some green tea today. Yep, and that's about it for me. So I put the link in the chat for my co host, Miss Nexie. Today, everybody, we're going to be talking about when you realize that you're toxic. Let me first start off by saying this channel is about growing, it's about maturing, realizing where you are in your life. This is for the mature crowd. This is not for those who just want to have their ears tickle. It's for those who are ready to get into some action and to live an amazing life. So, with all of that being said, I first have to start off by saying I was told for a long time through many relationships. I was told in romantic relationship, I was told from coworkers, I was told from relatives and friends that I needed to work on myself. I needed to improve and be a better person. I definitely had issues with when somebody would call me out and tell me the issues that they saw within me, like, you do this, or when somebody would tell me I needed to work on something, I would get so angry at them. And I feel that is 100% because I don't want to admit to myself that I am not perfect. I don't want to admit to myself that I have problems. Nobody wants to admit to themselves that they have issues, but the reality of it is that everybody has issues, but mine went way deeper. It's nothing wrong with the issues per se. It's about how you deal with those issues. See, my whole thing is I was taking my issues and then I was blaming other people for it. I was pointing my fingers. It was this person, it was that person. It was because this happened to me. And I would never assume any responsibility or any accountability for where I was in my life. And if we honestly want to grow, if we want to mature as women and as men and be better examples, be better, relatives, better friends, better workmates, have ourselves together and be better in our present, we do have to do some humbling of ourselves. We do have to admit that I do X, Y, and Z, and to not overwhelm ourselves. That's how it started off for me. I definitely knew that I had some anger issues. I definitely had issues with procrastination and with admitting when I was wrong, among many other things. And I have no problem admitting the issues that I had because I was at a space in my life where I was ready to grow. I was definitely ready to grow and to mature and to not be like everybody that I knew in the past. How it was back in the day, it used to be so much of our relatives the old fashioned way where they blamed it's your daddy, it's your uncle, it was your cousin, it was my mama, but nobody ever talks about what they do and what role they played in their life not progressing, or why they're bitter and angry, or why they can't finish things. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to get into this topic, to say it's okay, everybody, to realize that you need some help and you need to work on yourself. So let's welcome my wonderful co-host, Miss Nexie. Hi, Miss Nexie.
Hello, Marlene. Hello, Chad. How are you?
Doing amazing. How are you this evening?
Just you
Hmm.
know, getting over all of the food I have eaten for the past 4 days. I think that I'm still in a food coma kind of way.
Mm. Okay, okay, okay. So, this is a sip and chat, Miss Nexie. I gotta ask you, what are you sipping
Okay,
on?
I was gonna say tequila on the rocks, but that
Mm.
will not sound good because it's only like 3 o'clock here, but it's 5 o'clock
No,
somewhere, right?
no, there's never a bad time. Um, there I used to always be like tequila. See, we didn't do tequila because we were Jamaicans. We did rum, and there was no wrong time to pour rum into a drink.
But no, that will only be wishful thinking. No, I'm having a nice hot chocolate with
Ooh.
marshmallows in it. Yes, I know. I know. It's the last one of the year, I promise.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
No, it's
And
only
what
because there's 4 days left and then I'm going to start all over next year.
oh,
So it's
I was
the
about to
last
say,
one of this year.
I was like, but I know you. Okay, I know you. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's a little cold this morning. It was a little cold this morning, and I thought the afternoon was going to be better, but it's still very cold. So a nice hot chocolate sounded wonderful instead of the usual coffee.
right. Yeah, that does sound good. That does sound good. Okay, with marshmallows on it. Okay, Miss
Plenty.
Hubblicious. Yes. Hey, Miss Rashid. How are
Hi,
you
Miss
doing?
702.
How you doing? And realist one here in the building.
Hi, realist.
Okay,
How
okay.
are
We got
you?
our loyals up in here. Thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it. So, Miss Nexie. Okay, we're
Hmm.
going to talk about the sip and chat topic. So I know how we always talk about it and we kid and say we're perfect and all those things, but today I want to talk about something like real serious. Um, well, when you realize that you're toxic, when you realize that you have some issues and some problems, I can say for myself, for I think it took me 3 or 4 years to admit, like, that I had issues and problems and I needed to get some help. Because I could say for me, if I was like, pump your chest out. When I want to help myself, I will. When I want to make a change,
Oh, no, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt and say this, but that is, I think, for most of us, I think that accepting or admitting, even if it is to ourselves, between our teeth, that we're not as perfect as we think and that we are actually overall toxic. I think that on
Mm,
itself takes a very long time to
mm,
admit. To do something about it, even longer. And I'm
yeah.
speaking for myself from experience. As I said to you before, I'm perfect, right? When you're not mentally balanced, you think you're perfect, and you think
Mm,
that everybody else around you is the one with the problem.
mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know if that's how you thought, but I was that type of person that what is his problem? Like it always comes here with that attitude, or she
Mm-hmm.
always comes here with that face. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't
And
realize that the reason why they were doing that is because the toxic one was me, and they were coming into contact with me.
yeah. I realized when I realized that the reason for, I was like, why does everybody always have an attitude? And the attitude was because the energy that I would come into the
Mhm.
room. I
Yep.
was like, eek. Hmm.
Exactly. And that's the thing, that you don't realize how bad you are, because a lot of our people, because they love us, they put up with us, right? They don't tell us exactly how they feel because they don't want to hurt our feelings, even though we don't, when we're that messed up, we don't think twice to do it. We just say, what we want to say. We don't think about it first, and then, kind of analyze it and say, hey, am I going to hurt this person? We just say whatever is in our mind. And in a lot of ways, we hurt people without even realizing that we have wounded them. So I was always that person that, um, I had gotten to a point, and this is because I was with someone, kind of like this, that when people will come into the room, nieces or nephews, my siblings sometimes, and the first thing is like, what are you doing with your life? Are you going to school? Are you going to stay in that job? You still haven't finished school? So I will question them, right? I will always have those questions. It wasn't even about knowing how they were doing or anything. It was always attacking them for the things that they weren't doing.
Yes,
You know what
Nexie.
I mean?
Attacking them for the things that they weren't doing, but we never talk about the things that we aren't doing. It
Exactly.
was always, I had my finger out. I would be like, my brother does this, my sister does this, my cousin does this, my mom, my dad, this person in a relationship, on the workplace. Everybody was pointing fingers. And I remember when my therapist said, but what do you do, Marlene? And I was like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm here to
Exactly.
get them so I can have better tools to help them.
Be better.
I'm good. I'm good. And they're like, are
Exactly.
you?
When you are in that state of mind that you believe yourself perfect, you don't realize that some people are very sensitive about the things that they haven't accomplished. You know what I mean? Even though they've been wanting to, but maybe there's things that have come about that they haven't been able to get the money to go to school, or the parents got sick and they had to work full time so they can support the family. So when you say things like this to them, sometimes you hurt them in more ways than one, because you're asking questions, not asking them how you doing, how are your parents, but you're pointing out all of the things that they haven't accomplished yet, all of the things that you're kind of looking down at them instead of pumping
Yes.
them up. And so whenever I will, go to a party or whatever, I will feel like, oh, you know what I mean? Oh, she's here. Oh, I know what she's gonna ask me. And a couple of my nieces will come up to me. No, auntie, I haven't gone back to school yet. Yeah, I'm still thinking about it. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was gonna ask you how you were doing. They were like, mm-hmm. But I didn't get, right, that I had been that person that was always asking them, or not asking them, literally putting them down with the things that they had not accomplished. And I remember one time one of my nephews said that, right after high school, he was going to take time off. He was not going to go to college right away. And I remember grilling him about it and saying, why? Just go straight out of, high school. You're going to waste time. You're not going to go back to school until who knows when, if you ever. And then I didn't think of what I was saying until later on. I didn't ask him why he was doing this. I didn't ask him, do you need money? Do you need anything? How can I help you to go to school instead of you? You know what I mean? I was just going at him without even acknowledging that there was something going on in the family.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of that. When when you're toxic, you don't realize how you put out so much negative energy, so much judgment of others. But when it's given back to you, when others judge you, you get so upset. And then I don't understand why, when someone does the same thing, when someone mirrors back exactly what you're doing, you get so angry about it, but you're doing they're doing the same thing you're doing to them. But I don't know. It just does not make any sense. And it shows how toxic we are because there should be one standard. Like how I treat you is how you should treat me. And if it's not that way, that shows that it's something wrong with either you and sometimes them, because when we are in that environment, when we've been toxic for so long, or the people around us are toxic, we I think everybody in our circle usually needs help.
Yeah, and we normalize it. So it's hard to find out, Marlene, too, if we're toxics because we normalize these behaviors, right? Oh, that's how she is. Ah, you know how he is. It's okay. He's always been like that. We don't say, hey, he shouldn't be like that, or she shouldn't act like that. She shouldn't act high and mighty. She shouldn't come here asking everybody what they're doing, they're not doing, pointing fingers at people. Like, let's not normalize that because that's not normal. I'm sorry to say it, but that's
Hmm.
not normal.
Yeah.
When you see family, especially if you haven't seen them in a while, the last thing you want to ask is what they or point out is what they haven't accomplished. What you
Hmm.
want to ask is how you doing, right?
Yeah.
Is everything going okay with you? How is the family, whatever. But we until we work on ourselves, we really don't know how to go there. Until we grow up, that's what I have to say. Until
Yeah.
we grow up, we really don't know that that's what we're doing, or
But
that we are the toxic ones.
right, Nexie. And I can say honestly for myself, I didn't realize that I was toxic because that was my environment. Everybody around me was like that. And I was just being just like everybody else around me. But when I started to get into a circle of people who weren't that way, people who actually communicated with each other, people who didn't, do things like with sarcasm, or with some low blows, or embarrass them, when I saw that, like how they communicated and treated each other, I realized that I was the one that was the oddball.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Exactly.
like, why are you getting upset? Like, you're the one that did it. And the more people that I met like that, I started to realize that it wasn't other people. It was that when somebody was shining a light, a flashlight on my issues, and I had nowhere to go now, it was like I was backed into a corner. Like, okay, you ain't running no more. We all see what you're doing. So, yeah, it's time to do something about it.
And it's true what you just said. You're so right, because sometimes, like I said, we normalize it to the point where it's acceptable. It's no big deal in our household, right? Because that's how our entire family is, and it's been for generations. When you go to somebody else's house where they have a normal upbringing, because a normal, I have to say that because ours was a little bit abnormal, right? When they have a normal upbringing, that when they get together, they're joyful, they're talking about different things that they're doing, they're not criticizing, like you said, they're not throwing rocks at each other. Everybody comes in with a happy face. You look at them like, what's wrong with this family? What's wrong with these people? How did I end up in this circle? Because you're so sick in your head, and you have made that negativity so normal that you feel the outball out because you're not used to that. And it's
Hmm.
weird to you. At least it was to me.
Yeah, when I got introduced to a healthy family dynamic, it highlighted how dysfunctional mine was. When I started to see like people actually would be like, "How are you doing? What are you doing today? I care about you. I love you." Like they were communicating and they would listen to what each other was saying, and they did nice things with for each other without it being any expectation. They just did things for each other because they loved each other. It was like, I was like, this is how it's supposed to be, I guess. But it's like when you're in that zone and all you know is how to be angry and miserable. But what I came to realize that all I was doing was just protecting myself. We are that way because it's a protection mechanism.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a protective mechanism. Exactly. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of how I got to see how toxic I was or I had become because of the people around me. I had to travel to different places, different countries, right, to do certain things. So I started seeing different aspects of different countries, or how family function in different countries, different aspects of them. Yeah, there was the one or two toxic people in their family, but not the whole family was toxic. I learned that. Then I went to another country and I saw that everybody got along together. And if there was a toxic person, this family will try to bring him out of that. That was another. So I didn't see my toxicity until I got out of my shell. I got out of my environment, my people, my
Right.
race, my Hispanic people. I have to say it.
Right.
I had to get out of that to see the dynamics of others and how they function in a family unit, an extended family at that unit, so perfectly well. How kind, how thoughtful, how everything they are, because they're in a different wavelength than we are, than I was, right, at
Right.
that point. And so it took for me to get out of this shell life that I had to see that what I was becoming, what I had become, and what I was turning those around me into was not normal. And I had to stop normalizing that family dynamic, that normalcy. I had to stop that. I had to say, no, 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 this is not acceptable anymore. And yes, there's a lot of apologies that you have to throw out there because of the people that you have hurt. Some of them are going to accept your apologies, some are not. But you have to apologize because you didn't realize what you were doing.
Right.
So it took me that long, Marlene, to see it. And then as therapy went on and I brought this up, it took me that long to accept who I was.
Exactly, Nexi. And I definitely will say that when I finally came to terms with it, it's like when you see yourself outside of all of the issue and you're ready to like face everything and say, the way I was raised, that wasn't good. The people around me, how we talked to each other, how we didn't talk to each other, the way we communicated, the way we didn't communicate, all of those things, it's something that I learned that just because you're not saying anything, it's still saying anything. Sometimes the biggest communication that we can make is not saying anything. And that's what I did for years. That's just how it was. When there was an issue with my family, with my friends, because we were all the same way, because Caribbean people, we all basically acted the same. So when I would get upset, all I would do is sweep it under the rug. I would ignore them, give them the silent treatment, or do something, go spread their business, talk about them, something, like, instead of facing the issue, talking to the person that offended me, finding out the reason why are they doing this, and why did I do that? Why did I feel that I had to hurt somebody in order to make it right for me? And I knew for me it stemmed back to when I was younger, because that's what would happen. I would have to do something to get the attention of my siblings or my parents. And I was doing the same thing in relationships. You take your past with you into your present until you resolve it, until you allow yourself to say, what I have done, what has happened to me, what happened in the past. I cannot bring it into the future with me, because if I do that, I will just be scarring other people. I will be making new wounds for other people. I will be causing pain and hurt and disruption. I will be doing something to them that I wouldn't want happen to me. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was making another cycle, another generation of dysfunction. And we do that when we don't have conversations about things that happened. And I know in my family what we did is we always we always swept everything under the rug. Big major issues, traumatic events. It was just like we all knew it happened, but nobody wanted to talk about it. And it would be is one issue, another issue. Next thing is 100 issues. So when you have all those issues pile up, you become so toxic because all you're doing is stuffing your pain away, stuffing. And then eventually, when you get to be an adult, you just become so bitter for everything that you've been holding inside, for all the times that you have tried to pretend that you weren't dealing with things or the things that you were going through. You can't ignore the monkey in the room, the skeletons in the closet. Well, you can ignore it, but it causes other disruptions. It causes your relationships with other people in your present to be very toxic as well, because if until you work on yourself, until you admit what happened to you, until you see that you've had a problem, that what you've been doing, the way you cope with things, the way you have communicated or not communicated is not good. And for me, that's when that the healing began. That's when I could say, what happened to me, what I have done, what was done to me is not good. And now I
For,
have.
I'm sorry, Marlene. I didn't
Oh,
mean
it's
to
okay.
interrupt.
Oh, that's okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go on.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, and then I just had to say what happened to me is not good, and what am I going to do about it? And I feel that was the beginning of the beginning of the healing process, because you first have to say what happened to me, what I did do, what I didn't do, what I did do, what I allowed, all of that. I had to own that so that I could do better, because until you say I have a problem, what I'm doing right now is not right, you're going to continue to do it and hurt other people.
It's true. That is so true. Healing has to happen first, before you can help anybody else. Because if you do it when you're still hurt, you're not going to help, but you're going to probably damage them, or hinder their growth, or get in the way of probably them thinking a different way than you are and making their own conclusions. So healing is number one. You're supposed to heal yourself. You're supposed to work on you first so that you don't make the same mistakes going forward. Now, coming from the families that we have, come from, it takes a lot of work to not be toxic, because they're so embedded in it that it is difficult for them to be anything but, right? So for us to be able to work in a kind of non-toxic or less toxic, or a little bit more normal than them, we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to relearn, all the bad behavior. We have to relearn that and turn it into good behavior, and positive thinking, and positive outcome, out of our mouth. And so we have to take away everything that it's been embedded in us, and turn it around and try to inject this new positive of ours into the next generation, so that hopefully by the third or fourth generation, all this toxicity will be long gone, because it's not going to be an instant change, right? But we can start with the generation in front of us. change the way we are with them, because there's nothing we can do with the family and the background, the ones that we already came from. We got to do it with the younger ones so they can learn to be better than us. But it takes a lot of work, Marlene. It takes a lot of self acceptance, and it takes a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, because you have to face your demons, right? You have to peel that monkey off your back, the one that it keeps on telling you to be toxic,
Yeah.
and try not to be that person anymore. And like I said, because it's we grow up with it, and I'm telling you from experience, I didn't see how toxic I was, or had become, because I didn't grow up like that, but I was around people that were very toxic, and I literally came to adulthood with them and went on for years in the same family. So their toxicity became like my armor,
Mm-hmm.
and I was becoming one of them. So I had to, like I said, unlearn all that bad behavior and relearn what I had grown up with. Kindness, mindful of what I say and what I do towards others. Make sure that, instead of a negative connotation, that I go and do something positive for this person. um, ignore certain things that were said about me behind my back, or sometimes rocks that they threw at me. Just ignore them so that I didn't give, the little ones a show. So all those things, they're important, because going forward, once you have worked on yourself, you want to see the next generation have a better life than you did, have a better outcome, and probably study and go higher than you have. But
Right.
it's only going to be done, if we start to be more positive and less toxic.
Right. And that's why this point right here, you must unlearn and relearn healthy replacements. So you have to that's the admitting part, which is so difficult. You admitting everything, whether it was by your choice or something that you learned from other people who were toxic. So however you learned it, so you have to admit that, and then you have to find a healthy replacement, because if you don't have something to replace that negative with, you got to replace the negative with a positive. Or when something comes up, you're going to default back into that toxic and negative behavior. So admitting it is key, and then you have to do that work on yourself to say no, because my default is always, when I get upset, is to go silent, and I have to talk to myself and say no, we don't ignore anymore. We're grown, we're mature. We don't ignore people. We tell people how we feel, we communicate. So I do still have to remind myself of that, because my default is always to go back when I get upset about something, is to give a silent treatment. But I know healthier ways now. And then I remind myself, no, tell them how you feel, communicate, because you wouldn't want to get the silent treatment. So that's how you unlearn and then you relearn with healthy replacements.
Yeah, and that is super hard to do. And I know, because it has taken me a long time to get to the point where I can, like I said, ask for what I need, or ask for help in the right way, without saying, shaming people, or making them feel bad because they didn't help me before, and now they want to help me, right? So we
Mhm.
have to learn, like you said, more positive ways to do this. And also, Marlene, I want to go back a little bit to when when we're in the family, the toxic family, and you said it's like a defense mechanism, right? When you act a certain way. And it's true. I remember when I used to come around certain people, I will attack first, because I knew that if I didn't do that, they were going to start with their crap. So I will attack first and they will leave me alone. So it's kind of a defense mechanism. You strike first and then they leave you alone. Like you put them in their place, right? And they leave you alone. But the thing here is I had to unlearn that. And I had to learn to stop them when they were about to start with their whatever they were going to. And I put a stop to it. No, 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 stop. That's not going to work with me now. You want to say something? Say it to me straight out. And if I can, I will change the behavior. I will change whatever you need me to change. But other than that, if you're not going to say anything good, anything positive, then don't say anything at all because I'm not going to be here to listen. So those are the
Right.
things that I had to relearn. I just wanted to go
Mhm.
back and say that.
Yep. And that's so key is, it's hard to not want to go backwards because that fighting that in me, like I naturally am a person, I like to fight because that's just how it was. When you're the last child, you naturally, that's the inclination because it's like you're not going to run over me and treat me any kind of way. That's just my natural thing. So I had to learn all that not everything is something to respond to. That
Exactly.
that's something that I had to learn to grow into, that some people it's not even worth a response. Some things you do have to speak up because you can't let people treat you like a doormat, but also you can put people in their place in what I like to call a nice nasty way.
Mm. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And
Mhm.
those are the, like we were saying, the healthy ways of doing things. It doesn't come overnight, people. So just keep that in mind. It takes a very long time to get to the point where you can be civilized with those that are not. And that
Mhm.
you have, you have
I think your
music
mic
so that
went
you
out.
can
Okay.
you I'm sorry, that to teach these individuals how to communicate with you. You're not going to teach them how to communicate with everybody else. That's not your job. What you're teaching them now that you're not toxic anymore, that you're not just, throwing punches any way you want to, what you want to teach them is how to treat you because the
Mhm.
responsibility is on you for you. You cannot do it for everybody else. You can do it for yourself. And if there's little ones, yeah, you step in for the little ones. But for other grown-ups, that's on them. If they want to continue this, that's on them. But to me, now that I have worked on myself, that I have unlearned all of this toxic behavior, now you're going to treat me a certain way. And if they don't, then you don't respond
Mhm.
until they learn to treat you with respect.
Right. And that's a very key part of this discussion, that you definitely have to realize that there are some that is just not worth it. There's some just not worth it. So another part too is, when you realize you're toxic, like you were saying before, you definitely have to go into and do some of that healing process. And just like because you weren't in a good space, sometimes because you didn't know better, because of the people in your environment, or your issue could have been your attitude problem or your lack of humility, or a combination of all of them. So the people that you hurt, you do need to go back and do some of the apologizing because of your immaturity, because you were a hothead or you're a person who always had to be right. It's hard to swallow that pill, but that's how you gain the respect from other people, and they can see that you're maturing and growing up. Not that they're going to take that apology and everything will be perfect. Some people aren't going to accept that apology, but you have to do that for yourself because it shows how you're growing. How other people take you, that's none of your business. That's not your issue. That's a them problem. You have to do it for yourself to show yourself, what when I didn't know better, that's how I reacted. That's the elevation that I was at. That was my vibration. But now that I know better, I can look back and say, I was wrong for that. You go back and apologize. And it's not to get them on your side, but it's for you to have peace. Yeah, that part.
Yeah. And in the process of doing that, Marlene, which is great that you brought that up, in the process of doing that, you teach them as well that, you have humility enough to apologize to them, even though, like you said, they may not take your apology. They may just spit it back out at you and say, oh, now you want to apologize, whatever. So you have to, like, do it for yourself, but also to teach them that it is okay for you to apologize when you hurt someone. Because that's the one thing that I saw a lot, that I see still a lot around my people, is that they have a hard time apologizing when they have hurt you. They have
Mm-hmm.
a hard time bringing that topic up. And if you do, they close it really fast. They change the
Mm-hmm.
subject, or I don't want to talk about it, or whatever. So it's hard for them to get there because they haven't worked on themselves. But when you have, giving that apology is going to take everything you got, because it will. It's something that is super hard to do because you're embarrassed, you feel ashamed, you're gonna go humiliate yourself in front of them, right? But the thing here is after you go through all of that and you give them that apology from you, and whether they take it or not, like you said, after everything, all the nerves, all the anxiousness and the emotions you feel after, you feel so much better. And
Yes.
then you leave it all up to God and up to the universe. Whatever happens, happens. But I did what I was supposed to do, which is apologize for certain behavior. What they do with that apology, now you put it on them. It's
Mm-hmm.
up to them. They accept it or don't accept it, then it's up to them. You already did your part. And that's going to teach you moving on that it is okay to say, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That
It,
it's
it, it,
okay.
it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to be accountable.
Hmm. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say those, that little word, sorry, which sometimes is very hard to come out because you always want to be right. You always want to be the one that knows it all, right? Because according to us, we knew it all. You always want to be on top. You don't want to be the one that everybody's always, talking about, or,
Yeah.
thinking lesser of. But it is good to learn how to say that and mean it, not just say it. Because a lot of us can just say, yeah, sorry, but you don't mean it. Mean
Mm-hmm.
it when you say it. And it's going to have the effect that you were expecting. It's going to cleanse you, it's going to allow you to move on.
Exactly, Nexi. And the whole thing about that, that's for you. Just like, you giving that apology to others, it's for yourself. It's so that you can be at peace with the situation, so that your mind can rest. Because your mind, your subconscious is always working on things until you resolve it. And that resolution for you is what brings you peace. And also, I felt like when I went back and I apologized to the people that I hurt, I noticed that I didn't need to have the vices anymore that kept me toxic. I had to have, the alcohol. I had to have, the unhealthy eating, and lots of people around me, and all of this, everything to cover up everything that I was feeling until I could admit myself, until I worked on myself. Then I didn't need anything to cover it up. I was willing to expose that wound and say, this is what it is. It's not going to be pretty. What I did wasn't pretty. What other people did to me wasn't pretty, but this is the reality, and I'm grown enough to receive it for all that it is.
Mm. Exactly, exactly. And we're talking about the apologies we owe to people that we have hurt, right? Family members, friends, or whatever. But I want to take it into something very personal to me. And it's when you have to apologize to your significant other, whether it's for something you did, whether it's because the relationship has ended, for whatever it is, I it took me a long time to get to this point that I'm talking about right now. But once I apologize for the role I played in the ending of that relationship, or the middle of whatever happened in that relationship, once I apologized and took accountability for the role I played, for that relationship not to work, once I did that, the relationship moving forward improved, because now we were both in the same space. We were both holding each other accountable, not just me saying it's all your fault. And that person feeling like, yeah, probably it is all my fault, but thinking you probably played a role in this breakup, right? So, once I did that, and once you do that with a relationship, like I said, it's either to fix something that you did, or either whether it's ending or it's beginning, or in the middle of, it doesn't matter. When you apologize, do it with your entire heart, and taking, accountability for the role you played, because it's only then that this other person can accept your apology.
Yeah, and with that, Nexie, you also have to realize that when you are ready and you give that apology, you have to understand when somebody says that they need some time. Just like you did something and you hurt them and it hurt them for a long time, there's sometimes people need some time to process it. So we can't expect for, as soon as we say we're sorry, we think everything is going to be perfect
Oh,
and
no.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. Like I said, the apology is you accepting your fault, right, on what happened. Now, how that person receives that is up to them. And you have to move on from that. Allow them to assimilate whatever it is that you said or what you have said, or and then, whenever they're ready, if they say right away, you know what? Thank you for that. I really appreciate what you just did, because it's making us go forward in a better light. Good. If
Mhm.
not, you have to give them the time. Yes, you do. You do. You owe them that much.
You have to. You have to. And it's not for that. It's for them, but it's also for you. And I wanted to go into this point right now. When you realize that you're toxic and you've made some major changes in your life, you can't stay in the same around the same people who are toxic. No matter how much you love them, even if they are your relative, even if they're whoever they are, once you start maturing, emotionally, once you learn how to process, okay, I'm not in a good space mentally, and the triggers, what triggers you to being in a certain space, you can't allow people around you that won't change. You have to step away from those people, or you're going to go right back to where you
Hmm.
were.
I was about to say that, Marlene. You cannot allow these people to drag you back, even one step back. You can't. You can't. And the thing is, once you work on yourself like that, that you're removing all of that negativity, they fall like flies around you. The way you're thinking, the way you're acting makes them stay away from you, because they don't understand this new person, right? This new you, the way you're thinking, so positive, so different. Sometimes they just stay away from you as well, because you're not toxic anymore, so they cannot relate to you in any way.
Yeah.
But
And,
if
and
you if they don't do that, then you have to, like you said, you have to
mhm,
be the one to remove them. Yeah, go ahead, Marlene. I'm sorry.
yeah. Oh, it's okay. And one of the things about it is that even if it hurts, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable, you have to step away, because if you don't, you're going to go back into that same space And I've seen people, they put in so much work and they're doing so amazing and their life is going well. And then they go back, and some people, they relapse and then they go back into those vices, whatever that vice is, drugs, alcohol, addictions, whatever, and hang around that same crowd because it takes a lot of work to maintain and be accountable. It's so much easier to not have to be accountable and to do whatever you want. But if you really want to be an amazing person, you want to be more mature, you want to have good friendships. I can say that that's one of the reasons why I couldn't be in a good, healthy romantic relationship, is because I wouldn't allow myself, when I was called out on something or when I did something, I wasn't able to receive it because I was not in that space. I didn't want to hear it because
Hmm.
I was toxic.
Yeah, you were in denial. That's what it is. You were in denial because according to you, you weren't that person, and you didn't know what they were talking about. And we all get, we're all there. And you're right. Some people are doing so great, and it takes the one holiday, the one break that they spend with this toxic people to go back in some way to that. And even if you're good friends with this person, or it's a good family member, once they go back, you have to step away because it's so easy to go back to being toxic, Marlene. It's a lot harder to keep that toxicity away from you. And that's something that I had to battle with, like every day. Like I had to fight not going back to that, not being that person again. Um, not being so negative. I had to fight all of that. And I had to remove myself from a lot of people. And I'm happy I did. I'm very happy I did because that allowed me to work on myself and continuously do so to the point that now, even if I'm around them, nothing changes from me. I'm still the same.
Exactly. And but the whole thing about it, Nexie, is that it's a work in progress. And it's something that I had to learn to be patient with myself. Just like it took you years to be that toxic person, it's going to take you years to improve and work on certain issues in your personality. Learning your triggers and knowing when it's time for you to walk away, when it's time to not reply, when it's time to speak up. It's all about finding that balance
Mm,
within you and knowing what you want, what you need, so that you can be healthy. Because that's what this conversation is all about. You realize you're toxic, but then you change, you get some help, you work on yourself, and now you are in a space to where you're no longer toxic, but you're healthy.
There you go. Exactly. You're healthy. And for me, even though like I said, when my kids were younger, I wasn't really working on myself as until I started school. But the difference that I see
I think your mic went out, Nexie.
and the relationship they have with their kids, it's so different than what they're going through with their adult kids, right? And so I am happy that some way, somehow, I was able to break from that and have healthy, not always perfect, because we're going to have differences. I'm not saying my kids are perfect. No, that's not what I'm saying. But we're not toxic. When something bothers us, we talk about it, maybe not right then and there, because sometimes talking about it in the moment, you're not going to be able to address it the right way. So, we cool off and then we talk about it and we bring up exactly what is bothering us, and we allow each other space to think about it and heal from it and then talk about it some more. That's healthy, you know. And I see with my in-laws and extended family, this toxic relationship, which is why I'm glad that, the holidays now is just between me and my kids. We don't have all of this other toxicity coming our way, because there's so many fights. People are not talking, even though they're father and child, or mother and child. They're not talking. One is on one corner, the other one's on the other. It's so difficult to have a good time with people like that. So now that we have removed that, and we see them from time to time, we still see that behavior. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy that I was able to stay away from that and have the relationship I have with them.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important. And my whole thing is that it took me a long time to realize for myself when I decided that I didn't want to be toxic anymore. I had to understand that just because I was working on myself and improving, it didn't mean that other people around me were going to change. And that was hard for me to receive.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
felt like because I was working on myself and improving, I wanted everybody to come over to that side. But some people just don't want to heal. Some want to hold on to that pain and that anger and that resentment and be bitter their whole life. But that was not me. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to be that way. I didn't want to be that example and be a bitter old lady like I've seen so many people from, past generations of my relative. I want to be that little old lady that is very happy talking about, oh, when I worked on myself, and then my how my life changed and how all of these things happened to me because I put in the work. It's about all those things too, and those are some of the gifts and the blessings that we receive from our hard work.
Exactly, which is, what I was happy about, because now that my kids didn't have kids, they until this year. My daughter is the first one to have a baby, and she's already in pretty much like her mid 30s, and that's our first grandchild. But seeing the relationship I have gives me the hope that she's going to have an even better relationship with her child. And my son soon will start having a family too. So seeing our dynamic, I'm happy, because these babies are going to grow up in a non-toxic family, because we keep it so small, right? So
Mhm.
like, tiny and not so extended. They're going to grow up with a more positive outlook in life. They're gonna grow up that way, and they're gonna pass it on to the next generation. That's how you fix, your family. You cannot do it with everybody, Marlene. My
Right.
goal wasn't to fix everybody, because I learned as I started working on myself that I was just going there to fix me. And
Mhm.
it's something that my therapist had to make me understand. You're not gonna fix everybody. You're here for you. I wasn't like Marlene going there just to fix everybody else.
Yes, I was. I admit it. I was there and I said, okay, guys, now this is what we're gonna do. And everybody's looking at me like, what? Who's gonna do? No, I'm not doing nothing. And I was like, what? So that was hard for me to process, but you know, it's okay. I had to learn to not be you can't control other people. You can't make other people happy. That is a personal job. That's a me problem, that's not anything to do with them. I have to take care of myself. I have to be happy. I have to put in the work. And it's up to other people for them to put in the work to themselves to make themselves be happy.
And yeah, and like my therapist, and said, you have to lead by example. You cannot go and tell them this is how it's going to be from now on. No, you have to lead them there. You have to be the example they're going to follow. So you have to be the one showing them these different things without really showing them, just acting on them every day. And then they start changing, like the small group around you, right? They start talking more, they start doing other things, because you're initiating that change. So leading by example is the only way you're going to be able to change that behavior, or change whatever it is that needs to be
Right.
changed. And that's what I did. I started changing me, and I noticed, the one thing, with my family was that, I'm so sorry, Marlene, if you're listening to, I have a seal again. I had to learn with my family that even communicating with between parent and child was so disrespectful and so difficult. But whenever I talked to them, because of the way that I talked to them, they weren't disrespectful to me. They would actually listen to me. They could be upset at the parents, but if they will, like, if I will get in between that and talk to them and ask them how they were doing, and or point something out in a kind way, you shouldn't be doing this because this and this and that, because it was different from the way the parent was saying it. They were more receptive to listen to me at that point that they were to listen to the parents.
Right.
And
And
so the communication between my nieces and nephews improved for me and them, but it didn't improve with the parents because I couldn't get them to do this. They were too wrapped up in their toxicity, and they still are. And
mhm.
the saddest thing is that the grandchildren from that side are involved in all of that.
Yeah. See, but you know what I had to learn is that um one of the best gifts that I got in therapy is when my therapist told me, says, my only your responsibility is to work on you. Now, if you improve and you're better and you plant seeds of hope and change into other people, that's a gift, but that's
Mm-mm,
not your responsibility.
mm-mm,
And that helped me a lot to lessen the load because I felt like I had to be save my whole family from being broken. I really wanted to break the generational curses of lack of communication and anger and resentment and not having closeness. So I wanted to do that so badly, but it couldn't be healed just from me. it,
mm-mm.
it would have it would have to be just a seed. I dropped the seeds all over the place. You just by doing small things. Hey, you can call me sometime, and you do nice things. And it would be nice if you said you love me when you're ready. So I started putting that out there, that it's okay. You can tell me you love me. We can stop by, we can hang out and have lunch sometime. But it wasn't a normal thing, and I had to realize that it takes time for others to feel comfortable with this new healthy environment.
Yeah, the non-toxic, um, the non-toxic you, the new and improve you. But through time, you see that your little seeds are flourishing and are taking root, and that's a plus.
It's a major plus. Hey, Mary B.
Hi, Mary.
Yeah, and it's a major plus, Nexie, because we feel like it's so much to carry around, trying to take on all the problems of all the generations, when we could never do that. So don't be so tough on yourself. We definitely have to learn that it's not our job. We just do the best that we can. And when we become happier, when we do what we're supposed to do, we will be the maybe the first one within our relative to be the ones that say, communicate, say how we feel, get together, not be resentful, forgive. And then maybe by the next generation of your relative, then somebody else will say, because my cousin, my auntie, my whoever did this, now I'm going to do this in
Mm-hmm.
my generation. So it starts that way.
Yeah, it starts with you.
Yeah.
Exactly what the therapist say. It starts with you. You are the one that is going to change. You're the one that by working on yourself, making the changes that you need, it's going to bring upon that change to the family. So, and it's only natural that when they see a certain behavior, that they follow. Um, and it sometimes in small steps, but they start to improve themselves a little bit, just a little bit. And it's good enough for you because you're seeing that they're receptive to the new you, that you're not that toxic person anymore. You know, you're becoming a more positive, you're becoming something better, and they're receptive to that. The new
Yeah.
Marlene or the new Nexie. Now for me,
Mm.
I've said this before, it's sometimes it was very difficult to accept certain things, and that's something that I had to work on, you know, to accept certain change, because I'm not very good with that. You know, if you're telling me you're going to go straight to this place and then all of a sudden you make a left in between, I'm going to freak out, because you didn't say that. You say you were going straight to that, from this place to that place. So why are you making a left without telling me? So working on that for me improved a lot of things, Marlene. A lot
That's
of things, because I
good.
was toxic that way. I will get bent out of shape, and I will be like so desperate because you changed, and you know, you should have not done that, and I will sour the mood by
Mm-hmm.
being like this. I was affecting not just me but the rest of, you know, my kids and you know, my husband. So it was going across all of us, and changing that it's okay to make a left even if you don't say it, or it's okay to change a certain thing even if it wasn't in the plans. Accepting even if it bothers me still a little, but I keep it to myself and I work on it myself. I don't say it brings more joy that way, because they're looking at you for a reaction, but when they don't see one, they're all happy, like, yeah, she didn't react, okay, cool, we're cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
Nexie, change is hard when you've
mm-hmm.
been used to doing something like this strict, rigid, it's this way, it's this way, it's this way. You get comfortable in that, but we have to allow change because, we all should be making some changes and not being so rigid because that's where you lose your joy. You lose your joy when everything always is this way. We're not robots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, sometimes we act like that, but you know, the what I like the most, from my improvement, like I said before, and I'm gonna say it 1,000 times, is the relationships that I have nurtured
Mhm.
because of it. You know, we have great relationship. Like I said, we can have our disagreements because no family is perfect, but what I like about the change that I made is that we can talk about it. We don't have to be upset forever. We don't have to disrespect each other. We can be upset, calm down, and then talk about what upset us or what triggered us or whatever it is that it was. It might be something you said, the way you looked at me, the way you answered, whatever it was, we can always go back and talk about what happened, right?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
something that, you know, I grew up like that with my dad, but not after I came to my mom. It was different there. So all
Mm.
those changes sometimes, like you said, a defense mechanism. You put that wall, and then you don't want any changes because you're already so tired of all that is different from how you grew up. So that's what I didn't want for my kids. I didn't want them to have to go through all of the, you know, therapy and all of the stuff I had to go through because of what happened to me. And making those changes on me allowed the family to be more united, more positive, less toxic. And, you know, moving forward, it's going to be even better with the next generation, like I said. So that's what I'm grateful for.
Yep. And I'm grateful for your change. And I'm grateful for all of the change that is happening in all of you loved ones. That's why I do this channel, Love Marlene 411, to talk about, things that is uncomfortable, things that we have dealt with that affected our mental health, emotional health, our spiritual enlightenment. There's a lot of blockages that happens to us in our life, and we can't get to the space that we need to get to because we need to deal with certain issues. So it does take courage. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of strength. And, you have to just continue to be patient with yourself and to just keep on working on it until you experience some peace. But don't give up. That's something that I know for sure is something that I definitely had to keep working on. Like, don't try to rush things to change just like that overnight. Be patient with yourself, and let yourself take the time that you need so that you can be your form of healthy, because everybody, what is healthy to one person is not healthy to another.
Exactly, Marlena. That's perfect. What you think is good and healthy for you may not work for one of your kids, right?
Mhm.
May not work for one of your siblings. So you have to be able to be flexible. And you said that, talking about these topics is not easy. It's not, Marlene, you're so right. It's not, because you're putting out there to the world that you are an imperfect person. You're
Mhm.
letting them know all the troubles that you have had in the past and what has taken you to be who you are today. You're opening pretty much a book on them, right? Of
Mhm.
how you were and how you have improved. That means you're not that perfect person, but nobody is. We all are a work in progress. The way I had to look at my therapy and my me getting rid of the toxic person in me, it was like when you open a company, it's not going to take over, I mean, flight overnight and become the most popular company in the world. And you're going to be a multimillionaire. It's not going to be that. It's going to take baby steps to get your product out there and to grow. So that's the analogy I put in my head. It's like a company, a baby company. It's going to take baby steps until it grows up and turns into a very nice and productive and rich company. That's how I put it in my head. So I knew that it was going to take baby steps for me to get to the point or where I was content and satisfied with the person that I had become by working on
Mhm.
myself. And it took years to get here. It wasn't overnight. And sometimes, Marlene, I used to get desperate because I'll be like, okay, how long will this take? How much longer do I have to go through this? Or why don't I feel like I'm improving? Because you don't see it until somebody else tells you, like, wow, you've changed a lot. And that's when you see, oh my God, I have.
Mhm.
Because you're putting so much work into not being that toxic person anymore that you don't see that you have changed. So we all gonna have those moments that we want to give up. We're gonna have those moments on where somebody toxic comes to you and you want to answer back, fire back, as we say. But it
Mhm.
takes a lot more to restrain yourself than it is to answer. And if you answer, you're gonna lose a lot of therapy. If you
Yes.
restrain that, you're gonna gain a lot of therapy.
Yeah, and you know what helped me a lot, Nexie, was just allowing myself to realize that I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to please everybody. And it's okay for me to stand in my own personal truth. How one of my siblings handled it is not how I handled it. I had to allow myself to have my own way of coping with it, you know, if I can say it that way. Because how they process things is not how I process it. Because not everybody is a person who likes to talk about some things. Some people are people who like to write it out. Some people want to, go exercise. Everybody processes their pain, their traumas or whatever in a different way. But the most important thing is for the reason why we have these conversations like the sip and chat is for us to start having the openness to say it's time to have conversations like this. It's time to stop holding things inside and to work on ourselves, even if other people around me don't. Yes,
Exactly,
yes, we
exactly.
are.
And the thing is, for me, I learned, Marlene, and I'm sure you have too as well, and maybe a lot of the people in our chat, as we get older, we learn how to deliver the same information in 5 different ways to the people around us.
Mhm.
Because the message cannot be delivered to everybody the same way, right? Because we
Mhm.
have different temperaments, different ways of reactions, different ways of dealing with things. So we learn as we work on ourselves and become less self-centered and less toxic. We learn to deliver the same message in different ways that that person is going to be able to receive it,
Yes.
right? You can be more assertive on certain someone. You have to be more like around, the bushes, and come back and tell them, I think this is probably the way it should be. Or you have to make them think that they were the ones to came up with the idea. So that the change can take. So, sometimes demanding certain things or wanting everybody to get the message the same way at the same tone, it doesn't work,
Mm.
because it's not going to register with everybody. So, like I said, as I started working on myself and I started realizing that, that's when the communication between everybody else and me started working, because I learned how to deliver the message in different ways for the reception to be unilateral.
Yes. That's, oh, I like how you deliver that message. That was good. Um, and I feel that it's so important for us to do this for ourselves. I can say, how I grew up. Yes, it's not a comfortable thing to say. I'm toxic. I have things that I need to work on. I've hurt people. I've done this. I have certain vices. That I'm not very comfortable with, that these vices have control over me. But it has to start with you. That's the whole point of topics like this. What are you going to do with what you have? Are you going to sit on it? Are you going to ignore it, push it to the background? Or are you going to say, I think I'm going to talk to somebody. I'm going to get some help. I'm going to work on me. And that's what it took for me. I said, for the first time in my life, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to tickle everybody's ears, like live in this fantasy world for everybody to be like, everything was so great. And it really wasn't. Like, to say things for how it was, and then to not be mad because of what it was, to just allow it to be what it is. And
Hmm.
then that's it.
Exactly, exactly. But it takes a lot, like I said before, for us to open up to these topics, because they are traumatic. It takes a lot of work to come out and say, I am toxic. Seriously,
Mhm.
how toxic I have been. And it takes a lot more to change others' perception of you after you've been that toxic, right?
Yep.
But with hard work and with consistency and with your changes, even the hardest of people that you think are never going to change the way they think of you or the way that they see you, when they see that you are consistent with that change and that you are a different person, even they start, peeling off those layers and say, well, maybe she's right. Maybe she has changed. Maybe I got to let go of what I'm holding on against her. And so it's going to take a lot of work, probably more than what it took for you to get to the point where these people think that you're super toxic. It's going to take a lot of work, but there's a new year coming up, right, Marlene?
In a few days.
In a few days. And, this can be good conversations for us to start the year anew, that we can start putting small little goals for us to change a certain something about us. So it's the beginning. It's going to be the beginning of the year pretty soon. And maybe, put just one foot forward and say, I'm going to do this year. And take the entire year to change that particular thing about you. Don't
Mhm.
rush. Take your time. Do it the way that it works for you, not the way that it works for everybody else,
Mhm.
because it's not going to work if you do it that way. You have to go at your own pace, which is what we did. We
Yeah,
had to go at our own
yeah, yeah,
pace.
Nesty, at your own pace, but also at your own potential,
Hmm.
because everybody has different potential inside of them for whatever it is that they're good and talented at. So, with all of that being said, you have to know what works for you. You have to know when you feel good. You have to know when you feel worn out, stressed out, when you feel hurt, when you're experiencing emotional pain, mental pain. And then the whole question about this is that you have to be able to make a decision. I'm grown, I'm mature, and I'm not just going to sit on this. I'm going to do something about it.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the only way that we can be. I know that a lot of people say, well, it only took me so and so much time to learn this, or it only took me so and so much time to memorize this, or whatever. But that's them. That's on their corner. You're a
Hmm.
different person. You already know yourself. And if you're sincere and you're true to yourself, you're going to know how long it will take you to get there.
Hmm.
So, brand new year, brand new you. Even
Yeah.
if it's just the one thing you change the entire year, that will make you feel like $1 million.
Yeah. And don't do that for anybody else. And one of
But
the
you.
things that I have to say is that make sure when you're making a change, don't go and toot your horn and say, oh, this year I'm going to be doing this. Don't open
Mm-mm.
up your big mouth, everybody. Don't open up your big mouth. Just be quiet and walk in silence. As my mentor always told me, Marlene, walk in silence. Because when people don't know your moves, this is how you strike the blows the strongest. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're right. The change has to be for you. Whatever it is that you're going to accomplish, make sure that you're doing it for your well being, not for anybody else.
Mhm.
Because change that we make for others doesn't stick.
No.
We revert to whatever we were before because we're making it for somebody else, not because we wanted to. So the change has to be on you. Even if it's, what, this year I'm going to go work out a little bit more. Or
Mhm.
this year I'm going to walk a little bit more. Or this year I'm going to read more.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Whatever it is that you're going to change, it has to be done for you. I want to grow. I want to educate myself more. I want to be fit. I want to do whatever. It has to be done for you. And if
Mhm.
others benefit from the changes that you're making, then hallelujah.
Yep.
That's beautiful right there. If you can bring up on change on somebody else. But
Mhm.
always do it for you, because the only person that you're accountable for is yourself, nobody else.
If other people get some blessings, they get some of that what do you call it, that some of your elevation, some of that hot energy you have going on, you get all excited. That's good. If other people can get some of that, some of the overflow, the glistening, the abundance, whatever, the zhuzh, whatever it is that you put out there, if other people get that, that's amazing. But at the core of it, of the core of you, you are the one that has to put in the work to have a change in your life, or you will stay in that toxic space.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better
Yep.
myself, Miss Marlene.
Yes, great conversation, Miss Nexty. Any final thoughts?
Um, well, the new year's coming up. Just, be safe. Um, be ready for change, whatever it is, changes that you're making for the next year, and make sure that you're surrounded by people that bring the best out of you. Don't
Mhm.
surround yourself with toxic people that all they're going to do is bring that out of you. So make sure you're surrounded by people that truly, truly love you, that bring the best out of you, and just be safe. And new year, new you.
Yes. And with you saying that, Miss Nexie, stay tuned because on Sunday I'm going to do a special episode of From My Heart to Yours, and we're going to talk about teach, heal, rise up, and repeat. I got some really good things to say about that, about the elevation in our lives and how we can do it through those steps. So it's going to be a good one on Sunday. Whoever can make it, I welcome you. And those who can't, watch the replay. So
You
thank
will
you,
have
Miss
fun.
Nixie. Yep.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
Miss
Marlene, for
Nixie.
having me. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for coming over and, listening to us and enjoying this two crazy ladies talking about toxicity.
Who you calling crazy?
The toxic in me just called you crazy. No, but thank you very much for coming over. We appreciate all of you very, very much. And Happy New Year if we don't get to talk to you all. We will see you next year.
Yes. Thank you so much, Miss Nexie. And thank you guys so much for tuning into Love Marlene 411. If you have not hit the like on the way in, please hit the like on the way out. And of course, subscribe if you have not already and become a part of the loved ones. I really appreciate all of you. And work on yourself. Be the best you. Work on your mindset, your mindset, work on your positive energy, and take care of you because you are a loved one. Thank you for tuning into Love Marlene 411 and the sip and chat with my wonderful co-host, Miss Nexie.
Bye, everybody. Happy New Year again. Bye, Miss
Bye.
Marlene.
Bye, Miss Nexie. Bye, chat. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.